Chapter 38:12. Although Yunju and we are good friends and it is indeed more convenient for him to join Penglai Palace, isn't it too insincere for you to ask Yunju to join just like that? When Ziren looked at Long Yanwei, the other forces have all offered all kinds of good conditions for Yunju to consider. I know that our Penglai Palace is the leader of the forces on Penglai Island, but since we have specially recruited him, we should give him some good treatment. Yunju is the first inheritor of the Demon Training Tower after 100 years. Listening to Wen Ziren's words, Long Yanwei said helplessly, I knew from the beginning that you were up to something, but you didn't admit it. Now look. Forget it, tell me, what conditions do you want? Izihua also smiled and shook his head. Long Yanwei had completely fallen into the hands of these little guys. Although the performance of these little guys was really outstanding and gave Long Yanwei face, these little guys were not soft-hearted when it came to extorting. Thinking of this, Izihua quietly glanced at Long Yanwei. Only then did he realize that although Long Yanwei's face revealed a helpless expression, the depths of his eyes were clearly overflowing with a smile. Obviously, Long Yanwei was not unhappy about this matter. When Ziren smiled brightly and walked to Long Yanwei's side, Master Long, we won't make any excessive conditions. Yunju is a genius. Since he wants to join Penglai Palace, the treatment can't be too good, but at least it can't be worse than ours. Why don't you give him a contract beast? As his voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' eyes also fell on Long Yanwei. In fact, they were just giving it a try. If Long Yanwei could give Mo Yunjue a contract beast, it would naturally be the best. This was also what Mo Yunjue needed. However, if Long Yanwei was unwilling, Mo Yunjue still had to join Penglai Palace. They all understood in their hearts that Long Yanwei had already made an exception by being able to take 3 contract beasts from him. If Long Yanwei was unwilling, they would not force him. Long Yanwei glanced at Ziren. I knew that you guys had the idea of my demon pet egg. Presumably, before I came, you guys had already made up your mind, right? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled slightly. Long Yanwei's guess was right. They had indeed thought of all this a long time ago. Seeing that Long Yanwei wasn't angry, Mo Yunjue's smile widened a little. It seemed that this matter really had a chance. Yun's words, Yunju, you can give him a demon pet egg, even if it's to give the demon training tower face. You can give him a demon pet egg. The smile on Wen Ziren's face became even more brilliant. Anyway, this demon pet egg is also a reward for other disciples. It's the same. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang also said, Master Long, Yunju's strength is very outstanding. This kind of recruitment condition is actually not excessive. That's right, Master Long. You won't be disappointed. Mo Yunjue said. Mo Yunjue also cupped his hands towards Long Yanwei. Master Long, if you agree, I will join Penglai Palace. Chapter 38:13. Hearing this, Izihua couldn't help but chuckle. Then there's no other way. I can't refuse them. The demon pet egg is yours, so you can only make your own decision. Since you're all saying the same thing, if I don't agree, it would seem that I'm unreasonable. Since that's the case, then I'll agree to it. Long Yanwei said with a smile. In fact, before he set off, he had already expected such a situation. What's more, Mo Yunjue was a cultivation genius, so the conditions offered by the other forces would definitely not be bad. Even if Mo Yunjue and Bailey Hongzhuang were good friends, if they wanted to pull Mo Yunjue over without paying anything, it would indeed be a bit of ancient Buddha's kindness. He believed that the reason why the palace master asked him to come here was also because of this. Seeing that Long Yanwei directly agreed, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but have a thick smile on their faces. Thank you, Master Long. Mo Yunjue and the others said in unison. Since young Master Mo has already agreed to join the Penglai Palace, then the purpose of our trip has been achieved. Long Yanwei slowly opened his mouth. As for the demon pet egg, You can come to me to choose when you return to the Penglai Palace. How about it? Emo Yunju nodded, cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Master Long, you're welcome, it's what I should do." Izihua smiled as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. He felt that Long Yanwei really liked these little fellows, so when he was with them, he would make exceptions again and again. However, to be honest, these little fellows were indeed hard to dislike. "When do you plan to return to the Penglai Palace?" Izihua asked. "After Yingying breaks through, I will go with Yingying to challenge the trial. After the trial is over, we will return," Wen Ziren said. Izihua's eyes flashed with understanding. "Shangguan Yingying should be able to break through soon, right?" "Yes." Ziren nodded. "It should be tonight. Yanwei, since they're going back in a few days, why don't we stay here for a few more days? When the time comes, we can go back together with them. I just happen to want to take a look at the Devil Training Tower." Hearing Izihua's words, Long Yanwei replied, "Sure, this Devil Training Pagoda has been very lively recently. This time, you guys have successfully passed the Demon Training Tower. This is a big limelight. Now, in the entire Penglai Palace, you guys are in the limelight. If this continues, some disciples of the Inner Palace will be dissatisfied. You have only joined the Penglai Palace for a few months, and almost all the hot news is related to you." Izihua's eyes swept over Bailey Hongzhuang and the others one by one. What he said was really true. The matter of Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine was not over yet, and now there was such news. In the past few months, every sensational news was caused by them. "You can't blame us for this." Bailey Hongzhuang spread her hands. Actually, they were very innocent. From the beginning to the end, they did not want to be in the limelight. It was just that in the end, this matter fell on their head. This matter was caused by Master Long. If we attract public anger, Master Long will have to help us. Di Bei Chen's lips slowly hooked up into an evil smile. Speaking of which, if Long Yuanwei had not recruited them back, there would not have been so many things that would have happened. Chapter 38:14. All of a sudden, the atmosphere in the room became extremely harmonious. Long Yanwei and Izihua were not arrogant people. In addition, they had a very familiar relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang and others. Everyone didn't care at all. "I heard that you issued a bounty to take Chu Yunyao's life?" Izihua looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. This matter was very loud. When the bounty was just issued, the entire Penglai Palace also broke out in a frenzy. No one expected that Bailey Hongzhuang would have a conflict with Chu Yunyao, and Bailey Hongzhuang's bounty was issued so blatantly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "Yes, I have some grudges with Chu Yunyao. I didn't mean to stop you. I just heard the news and wanted to confirm it with you." Izihua said, "What happened in Qingshan before is also related to you, right?" Bailey Hongzhuang and others looked at each other and admitted it. Izihua had always been well informed. No matter what the news was, it could not be hidden from him. Since he asked now, he must have already confirmed the news. This bounty is extremely effective for hunting down the cultivators outside the forces, but it is not so easy to deal with the cultivators inside the forces. As long as Chu Yunyao does not leave the Penglai Palace, the possibility of the success of this bounty is very small. Long Yanwei reminded. He was no stranger to Chu Yunyao. This woman's strength was good, but she always liked to cause trouble, and the trouble she caused was not small. In contrast, he felt that Chu Yunyao's sister Chu Yunshang was much better. Hearing the concern in Long Yanwei's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression softened a little. "Thank you for your concern, Master Long, but I didn't intend to take her life through this bounty. I just gave her a warning first. As for the real end of the grudge, I have to do it myself." Her ink-black phoenix-like eyes flashed with a cold and resolute light. Chu Yunyao tortured Shangguan Yingying like that and seriously injured her. If she didn't get back at her, it would not be her style. Long Yanwei and Izihua also understood the meaning behind Bailey Hongzhuang's words. It seemed that the enmity between the two of them could not be resolved. Forget it. You can deal with the matters between you disciples yourselves. We won't interfere. Easy Hua smiled faintly. You guys should rest well. We'll go take a look at the other places in the demon training tower. After Long Yanwei and the other two left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three sat in the house with joyful smiles on their faces. I didn't think that Master Long would agree so easily this time. I thought it would take some effort. When Ziren chuckled. He had always heard that Long Yanwei was very stingy when it came to demon pet eggs. It was too difficult for ordinary people to get a demon pet egg from him. However, in his opinion, Master Long was very generous. Thank you so much for this matter. If you didn't speak, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to obtain this demon pet egg. Mo Yunjue cupped his fists and thanked him. With his personality, he would never ask for help. Therefore, even though when Ziren had already told him that he could raise this condition, he did not say it out loud. Chapter 38:15. Listening to Mo Yunjue's words, when Ziren waved his hand and said, "You're welcome. We are all friends. There is no need to thank me for such a small thing. It's your first time meeting Master Long and the others, so it's not good for you to ask. However, we're already familiar with Master Long. Although Master Long usually acts very stingy, he's actually not stingy. He's especially very generous to cultivators with strength. Although Ziren often extorted Master Long, in fact, he valued Master Long very much in his heart. He knew very well that Master Long was very tolerant of them. If not, Master Long would not have helped them time and time again. If Master Long did not want to agree, even if he tried his best to extort him, it would be useless. In the end, this was Master Long's own idea. Hongzhuang, it seems that your bounty this time is not small. The entire Penglai Palace already knows about it. Presumably, Chu Yunyao must be very depressed now. The effect you want has been achieved. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, with a faint smile on her lips. Chu Yunyao has brought us so much trouble. Naturally, we can't let her be happy. Let her suffer during this time. When we go back, she will not be as simple as suffering. At night, as Ziren expected, Shangguan Yingying successfully broke through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm. I finally succeeded in breaking through. A happy smile appeared on Shangguan Yingying's face. She quickly walked out of the house and couldn't wait to tell Bailey Hongzhuang the news of her breakthrough. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled and congratulated them. Then tomorrow you can go to the challenge area to try it out. Shangguan Yingying nodded. I also want to see how perverted the content of the challenge is. If I can pass it, that would be great. Let's do our best. Ziren smiled casually, but there was a firm and persistent light in the depths of his eyes. When he was in the blood refining tower, he was unable to obtain the inheritance. This time he came to the demon refining tower. He hoped that he could succeed once. After you are done, we can return to the Penglai Palace. When Shangguan Yingying found out that Long Yanwei had personally come to recruit Mo Yunjue, her eyes flashed with deep surprise. Yunjue, I never thought that you would actually have such face to be able to make Lord Long personally come to recruit you. I'm sure that when we return, the treatment will definitely not be bad. Although you are temporarily an outer disciple after going to Penglai Palace, I believe that you will soon be promoted to an inner disciple. After all, your strength is enough, Di Baichen said slowly. The next day, at dawn, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others headed to the challenge area. When they arrived at the challenge area, they found that it was already filled with cultivators. In the past few days, more and more people had come to the challenge area. Now, if they wanted to go through the challenge area, they had to queue up. Upon realizing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others felt helpless. The challenge area is really too popular now. It seems that you will have to wait for a while before you can go in. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Before this, the challenge area had always been very deserted. There was no need to wait at all. Chapter 38:16. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the others appeared in the trial area, everyone's gazes fell on them. Right now, they were all popular figures in the demon training tower. Everyone wanted to get close to them, but unfortunately, ever since they succeeded in passing the trial, they had been cultivating and did not appear at all. Not only that, the demon training tower had also made a rule that they were not allowed to casually disturb Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Thus, even if they wanted to get close to them, they could only watch from the side and not dare to disturb them. I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to come here again. It seems that this time, it should be Wenziren and Shangguan Yingying who are going to break through. You guessed right, they are all here to break through. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others have succeeded, they must have told the secret to Wenziren and Shangguan Yingying. Maybe they can also succeed this time. I don't really believe that. The assessment of the demon training tower is aimed at the heart of a cultivator. If the heart is not strong enough to break through the demon barrier, then it will be impossible to succeed. The so-called experience is actually not very useful. That's true. Everyone nodded their heads. There were already many cultivators present who had tried to pass the trial, so they had a certain understanding of the content of the trial. It was just that they were unable to succeed the first time, so they tried many times in a row but still failed. Not long after, it was Wenziren and Shangguan Yingying's turn. We're going in. Good luck, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others said together. And after Wenziren and Shangguan Yingying entered the trial area, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others waited outside the trial. It was hard to say whether or not Wenziren and his companion would succeed. In any case, they planned to wait here for the next 3 days. This way, if they succeeded, they would be able to share the joy immediately. After Long Yanwei and Izihua strolled around the demon training tower, they went to see Steward Qin. When Steward Qin saw the two of them, he was very envious. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were all disciples of the Penglai Palace. This was truly a glorious moment. Although they had been in the limelight in the Magic Tower recently, the cultivators who had obtained the inheritance all came from the Penglai Palace. It could be assumed that the Penglai Palace's glory was no less than the Magic Tower's. It was a pity that the main purpose of the demonic training tower was to allow cultivators to come here to challenge the challenges, as there was no sect here. Otherwise, he would have already recruited Bailey Hongzhuang and the others into his sect. While Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were waiting in the challenge area, Ao Lingxiao, who had disappeared for a few days, finally appeared in front of them. Seeing Ao Lingxiao's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but smile. Ziren and the others have already started? Ao Lingxiao asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. They just went in today. By the way, you have been busy cultivating these few days. Yesterday, Master Long and Mentor Yi came over. Now, Yunju is also a disciple of our Penglai Palace. Master Long and the others came personally? Ao Lingxiao was very surprised. He had stayed in the Penglai Palace for a period of time, so he naturally knew that Master Long and Mentor Yi didn't need to personally come to recruit disciples. Chapter 38:17. Yes, I didn't expect Master Long and the others to come personally. Even we were very surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. It seemed that the cultivators who obtained the inheritance of the demon training pagoda had always been valued by the major forces. With Mo Yunjue's strength, it's normal for him to receive such treatment. Ao Lingxiao smiled and turned his gaze to Mo Yunjue. With your current strength, no matter which sect you join, you will be valued more. Even on the Penglai Island, there are very few cultivators in the Star Realm. The Penglai Palace is already the largest force on the Penglai Island. It's naturally great that I can join. Mo Yunjue's eyes rippled with a trace of light. In fact, it didn't matter to him which force he joined. He only came here to meet up with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. It was naturally excellent to be able to improve his strength. He also knew very well that he would not stay in the Penglai Palace forever. At this time, Ao Lingxiao's gaze turned to Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, and said, "Di Beichen, I have something to tell you." Hearing this, Di Beichen looked at Ao Lingxiao in surprise, but still nodded and said, "Okay." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ao Lingxiao thoughtfully. Earlier, she felt that Ao Lingxiao seemed to have something to tell them, but was interrupted by the appearance of Steward Qin. Now, Ao Lingxiao specially came to find Di Beichen. Could it be that he wanted to tell them the reason why he had been following them all this time? "Yunjue, then we will leave for a while," Di Beichen said. Mo Yunjue nodded. "You guys go." When Di Beichen left, he also pulled Bailey Hongzhuang with him. For him, there was no news that he couldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang know. Ao Lingxiao was not surprised to see Di Beichen's actions. After all, he had always seen the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. These two people had no secrets to speak of. Even in the entire Penglai Island, there were very few couples who had such a good relationship like them. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two returned to the house, Di Beichen looked at Ao Lingxiao and said, "Just say what you want to say." Ao Lingxiao's expression was complicated as he looked at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. He did not immediately speak, but fell into silence. In fact, until now, he did not know what to say. "Di Beichen, I want to confirm something with you first. If it is confirmed, then I will say it. If not, then my judgment is wrong," Ao Lingxiao said. Di Beichen nodded slightly and said, "Okay, say it. I want to ask, since you were born, have you always been with your parents?" As soon as the words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen could not help but look at each other. A touch of surprise appeared in their eyes. They did not expect that Ao Lingxiao wanted to confirm this question. Could it be that what he wanted to say was related to Di Beichen's background? Thinking of this possibility, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expressions became more dignified. After all, this matter had always been of great concern to them. Unfortunately, after such a long time, they could not find any clues related to Di Beichen's background. Chapter 38:18. Ao Lingxiao didn't miss the shocked expressions on Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's faces. His eyes brightened. It seemed that his guess was somewhat credible. "I've never met my parents. I was adopted by my master." Di Beichen spoke slowly in a deep voice. "Why are you asking me this question? Actually, this is just my guess." Ao Lingxiao's expression was somewhat complicated. "From the first time I saw you, I felt that your appearance was somewhat familiar." "Familiar?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes brightened. "Where have you seen someone who looks like Beichen?" Di Beichen's appearance was so outstanding that there weren't many people who could look like him. If Ao Lingxiao had seen someone who looked like Di Beichen somewhere else, perhaps that person was Di Beichen's relative. "That's someone from the Di family." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. If that person's surname was really Di, then there really was some possibility. After all, the only keepsake Di Beichen had on him was the jade pendant with the word Di written on it. Back then, Si Tian had guessed that the words written on the jade pendant might be Di Beichen's surname, so he named Di Beichen. Could it be that the Di family was really Di Beichen's family? Ao Lingxiao saw that Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's faces were filled with doubt. In his heart, he knew that Di Beichen must be very curious about his background. If he only felt that Di Beichen's appearance was somewhat similar to that of the Di family's people, then it was fine. But Di Beichen was actually adopted, then perhaps his guess might be right. "My clan has a certain relationship with the Di clan. In the past, I've seen a portrait of a senior of the Di clan in my clan. The person in that portrait was extremely similar to Di Beichen." As he spoke, Ao Lingxiao's gaze landed on Di Beichen. "Because of this, I was very surprised when I first saw you. However, I also know that my baseless guess is very laughable and has no basis to speak of, so I have been following you all this time to confirm this point." Just because you feel that I look similar to the elders of the D clan, you feel that I'm a member of the D clan. Di Baichen frowned. If Ao Lingxiao had any other evidence, he might have believed it. However, it was a bit too ridiculous to confirm this based on the similarity of their appearances. After all, there were so many people in this world, and there were definitely a lot of people who looked alike, but there was no blood relationship between them. Ao Lingxiao shook his head. No, it's not just that. What else? Bailey Hongzhuang quickly asked. This was Di Baichen's obsession. She had always hoped to help Di Baichen find his birth parent. Now that she finally had some clues, she naturally wouldn't want to give up. Actually, the Di family lost a child more than 20 years ago. That child was the grandson of the head of the Di family, Ao Lingxiao said slowly. Ao Lingxiao said slowly, all these years, the Di family has been searching for his whereabouts. However, there has been no news. This is something that we all know. The Di family has almost searched everywhere, but there is no trace of him. Chapter 38:19. The Di family is a family of cultivators. The grandson of the head of the family must be a genius cultivator. Hearing Ao Lingxiao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were confused. Everything Ao Lingxiao said could be connected to Di Baichen. However, there should be many cultivators who fit this description. How could they be sure that this was related to Di Baichen? All these years, I have been trying to find my birth parent. However, although the things you said seem to be related to me, there is no evidence to prove it. Di Baichen's deep black eyes flashed with the light of thinking. He didn't lose his mind just because Ao Lingxiao said that this matter was related to him. Thinking about it carefully, this was just a side issue. It seemed to be related, but in reality, it was just a clue that couldn't withstand a single blow. Ao Lingxiao also knew that what he said wasn't that trustworthy. However, he had an extraordinary intuition. Although there was no reason for this intuition, it was always very accurate. He felt that Di Baichen was the person he was looking for. Actually, there is one more thing that can be confirmed. Ao Lingxiao muttered. What is it? Bailey Hongzhuang asked aloud, her ink-black phoenix eyes flashing with deep concern. If she could really be sure, then that would be great. I wonder if you have heard of the cursed body? After Ao Lingxiao said this, he felt a little complicated. Actually, this was the proof that could confirm whether Di Baichen was related to the Di family. However, even he felt that this possibility wasn't very high. As Ao Lingxiao's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were both stunned. Their faces were filled with disbelief and astonishment. Apart from them, this was the first time they had heard of the cursed body from another cultivator. Ao Lingxiao naturally noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen's expressions. He couldn't help but ask, "You have heard of it?" At this moment, even Ao Lingxiao found it hard to believe. The cursed body was an extremely rare body type. He felt that outside of Penglai Island, many people had never even heard of the existence of such a body type. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the others hadn't confirmed that Ao Lingxiao had never heard of Di Baichen's cursed physique, they wouldn't have believed that there was such a coincidence. Di Baichen nodded. That's right. He didn't directly say that he had the cursed physique. Instead, he looked at Ao Lingxiao. He wanted to know what Ao Lingxiao would say next. As far as I know, the lost child of the Di family has the cursed body. In fact, this had always been a characteristic of the Di family. Their family would often have cultivators with the cursed physique. The cursed physique was a very complicated physique. In the early stages of cultivation, it would suppress the cultivation speed of the cultivator. However, if the later stages were to transform into the heavenly mandate physique, then the cultivator would soar to the sky. It was precisely because of this that the Di family was able to have such an amazing status. However, if the cultivator couldn't transform the physique, then the cultivator would gradually become paralyzed and eventually die. In the past, the Di family hadn't mastered this method. However, ever since they successfully transformed the cursed physique into the heavenly mandate physique, their family had rapidly improved. Chapter 38:20. If Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were still doubtful of Ao Lingxiao's judgment, they were now certain that Di Beichen might really be related to the Di family after hearing Ao Lingxiao's words. After all, if it was just based on looks, it could still be a coincidence. However, if the cursed body was the same, it could not be explained by mere coincidence. At that moment, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's feelings were complicated. Bailey Hongzhuang did not expect to find clues about Di Beichen's background here. It was really a pleasant surprise. Most importantly, according to Ao Lingxiao's words, Di Beichen's parents definitely did not abandon him on purpose. Otherwise, they would not have been searching for him all these years. This was the best news for them. She had been with Beichen for so long, so she understood Beichen's thoughts very well. In comparison, if Beichen's parents really abandoned him on purpose, then he would rather not find Beichen's parents, so as not to add to his sadness. However, if it was not on purpose, then it should be a great comfort to Beichen. After all, no one would want to be abandoned. After Ao Lingxiao finished speaking, he realized that Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had fallen into silence. It was as if they were thinking about their own matters and did not answer his question. Seeing this, Ao Lingxiao was a little confused. He did not know if his guess was right or wrong. From Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang's expressions, he could not determine any useful information. Di Beichen's feelings were even more complicated. He had always been curious about his own background, especially after learning about Bailey Hongzhuang's life. He also had some expectations in his heart. He hoped that he was also left behind because of some forced reasons, and not deliberately abandoned. Although he had not met anyone from the Di family yet, according to Ao Lingxiao's information, he felt that he could be the lost child of the Di family. However, this was the first time he had heard of the Di family. Actually, I have the cursed body. Di Beichen slowly spoke in a deep voice. He raised his head and looked at Ao Lingxiao. His eyes were as deep as the sea, shining brightly. Following Di Beichen's words, Ao Lingxiao could not help but be stunned. He stared at Di Beichen in a daze, and could not recover for a moment. However, after he confirmed that he did not hear wrongly, a look of ecstasy appeared on his face. Your body physique is really the cursed body? Ao Lingxiao's gaze was fixed on Di Beichen's body. He was afraid that Di Beichen would deny it. If Di Beichen really had the cursed body, then he could say that Di Beichen was the Di family's lost young master. Di Beichen nodded. That's right. At this moment Di Beichen finally understood why he had such a special body physique. It turned out that this was the special characteristic of the Di family. However, Ao Lingxiao could not help but frown. From what I know, the cursed body physique is an extremely rare body physique. Only the Di family has the solution to it. Logically speaking, with your current age and strength, you should not be able to stand up again. However, you are still fine. Chapter 38:21. This is all thanks to my wife. Di Beichen turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. His gaze was so gentle that it could overflow with tears. To tell you the truth, when I first met Hongzhuang, I could only sit in a wheelchair. I had thought that I would never be able to stand up again. It was Hongzhuang who healed me and gave me the chance to stand up again. This was something that Di Beichen would never forget. Back then, it was Bailey Hongzhuang who had given him hope. He could still remember the beautiful white figure who had healed him under the peach blossom tree. His wife had slowly walked into his heart from that moment onward. At the same time, it was also from that moment onwards that he had decided that he would walk down this path with his wife for the rest of his life. Now that he recalled everything that had happened in Feng Bo country, the corners of his lips could not help but curl into a smile. Even though they had been through many trials and tribulations together, it was a good thing that they were finally able to hold hands and accompany each other. Noticing the look in Di Baichen's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile blossomed like a flower. To her, the general's residence in Feng Bo country was a place that she loathed the most. However, because of Di Baichen's existence, she could only remember the good times and completely forget the unbearable memories of the past. Hearing Di Baichen's words, Ao Lingxiao finally came to his senses. Bailey Hongzhuang was an outstanding doctor with exceptional medical skills. This was evident from the healing medicine that Bailey Hongzhuang had concocted. She had only been to the training grounds of the inner palace once, yet she was able to concoct such an effective healing medicine. This showed just how amazing her medical skills were. In that case, it was very possible that Bailey Hongzhuang had cured Di Baichen of his cursed body. I see. Ao Lingxiao stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. I never thought that junior sister Bailey would be able to cure the cursed body. I'm truly in awe of you. The cursed physique was an extremely difficult physique to break. According to what he knew back then, the Di family had spent a lot of effort to solve this problem. In the end, they had succeeded in solving this problem. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the outside world to know of the existence of the cursed body. However, not only was Bailey Hongzhuang able to diagnose Di Baichen at such a young age, but she had also helped Di Baichen change his physique. She was truly extraordinary. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Senior brother Ao, you flatter me. Is there a Di clan on Penglai Island? Why haven't I heard of it before? Di Baichen couldn't help but ask. Even though there were all sorts of big and small forces on Penglai Island, according to what he knew, the forces here were all sects and not aristocratic families. Actually, the Supreme Di clan isn't here. Ao Lingxiao spoke. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Could it be in the outside world? According to what she knew, there wasn't a Supreme Di clan in the outside world. If there really was one, her grandfather would have already gone to ask about it. It was impossible that there wasn't any news about Di Baichen until now. Could it be that it was a very small clan, so her grandfather didn't notice it? No. Ao Lingxiao shook his head. The Supreme Di clan is in a place that is even more powerful than Penglai Island, the upper realm. The moment he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen couldn't help but be stunned. Their faces flashed with intense astonishment. What? There's a place that's even more powerful than Penglai Island? Chapter 38-22. Hearing this news, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other. This was beyond their expectations. When they first learned that there was a place called Penglai Island, they were already very surprised. Now that they heard from Ao Lingxiao that there was an even more powerful place, they were truly astonished. Actually, Penglai Island is just an intermediate station between the upper realm and the outside world. When the cultivators from the outside world reach a certain level of strength, they can come to Penglai Island and go to the upper realm. In the past, Penglai Island was just an island with very few cultivators. It was just a passage. However, as the number of the skeleton army gradually increased, the upper realm was worried that it would affect the lives of the people from the outside world. So, they gathered some cultivators here. Over time, Penglai Island gradually expanded to become what it is now. So that's how it is. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen suddenly understood. The upper realm is actually not much different from the outside world. It's just that the cultivators there are much stronger. When the forces that controlled the power of darkness appeared, the entire Shringxian continent was in chaos. Wars broke out everywhere and countless experts fell. Since that war, the structure of the Shringxian continent changed. It was divided into the upper realm and the outer realm. This is because when the war broke out, the major forces worked together to separate the two continents in order to protect the ordinary people from being implicated. So, the outer realm you were in before was just the ordinary people in the past. It's just that after so many years, it has become what it is now. I didn't expect it to be like this. Di Baichen's eyes flashed with a light of surprise. He never thought that the Shengxian continent would have such a change. He thought that the place he lived in before was the most vast world. Now, he knew that it was not like that at all. It was just a corner of the world. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a bright light. She felt that the current Shengxian continent was very strange. 1,000 years ago, the cultivators in the Shengxian continent were clearly much stronger than they were now. She was wondering why after such a long time, the cultivators' strength had not improved. Instead, it had regressed. It turned out that this was the most fundamental reason. If that was the case, then it was very likely that the powerful beings she was familiar with were currently in the upper realm. Then, would the Bailey family still exist? Back then, she had left because of an accident. Now that 1,000 years had passed, he didn't know if she was still around. Previously, when we asked Master Long about this matter, Master Long only said that we hadn't reached that level yet, so he wouldn't tell us for now. Senior brother Ao, how do you know all this? Bailey Hongzhuang's clear and beautiful eyes gazed at Ao Lingxiao. She secretly thought in her heart. As early as when she first met Ao Lingxiao, she felt that this Ao Lingxiao was very strange. It seems that Ao Lingxiao's identity was not simple. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to know so many things. Hearing this, Ao Lingxiao glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen and said, "To be honest, I was originally from the upper realm." As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Chapter 38-23. If it was just for fun, Ao Lingxiao didn't need to join Penglai Island. Moreover, with Ao Lingxiao's temperament, he didn't seem like a playful person. At this time, Ao Lingxiao suddenly looked at Di Beichen. "Di junior brother, if it is confirmed that you are really the young master of the Di family, then at that time can you do me a favor?" Hearing this, Di Beichen's gaze became serious. His intuition told him that the favor Ao Lingxiao wanted him to do wasn't simple. "What favor?" "Help me take back my family." Ao Lingxiao clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with hatred. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were slightly stunned. Even though they had guessed that the favor Ao Lingxiao wanted them to do wouldn't be easy, it was still beyond their expectations. "Take back your family?" Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. "Senior brother Ao, even if Di Beichen is really a member of the Di family, isn't it too difficult for him to help you take back your family?" Ao Lingxiao shook his head. "It's not difficult. Junior brother Di can definitely help me." "Why are you so sure that I can help you?" Di Beichen felt a little strange. Even if he was really a member of the Di family, how could he do all this with his strength? The aristocratic families of the upper realm weren't ordinary powerful. Moreover, if he really returned to the Di family, who knew what kind of attitude the Di family would have towards him? Regarding this, Di Beichen had mixed feelings. Although the Di family had been searching for their descendants for so many years, they hadn't interacted with each other for so many years. Who knew what kind of scene it would be when they met again? When he first heard this news, Di Beichen was indeed very happy. However, after thinking about it carefully, he calmed down a lot. Aristocratic families weren't as warm as small families. Maybe there were many people in the family who didn't want him to go back. Everything was unknown. Actually, when I was chased out of the clan, an elder in the clan told me that as long as I left the upper realm, it would be very difficult for my brother to find me. Not only that, she even asked me to find a descendant of the Di clan who was stranded outside. As long as I could find that descendant, I would have a chance to take back the Di clan. At that time, I only thought that she was trying to comfort me. After all, the Di family had been searching for that person for so many years, and still couldn't find him. How could I possibly find him by myself? It wasn't until I met you that I realized what she said was true. Since I was able to find you, I naturally believe that you can help me take back my family. Ao Lingxiao looked earnestly at Di Beichen. The next moment, under the shocked gazes of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, Ao Lingxiao knelt in front of Di Beichen. "Junior brother Di, I beg you, please help me." Senior brother Ao, what are you doing? Get up. Di Baichen hurriedly went to help Ao Lingxiao up. What Ao Lingxiao was doing was completely different from what he usually did. However, Ao Lingxiao was still kneeling on the ground, unwilling to get up. Chapter 38:24. Di Baichen couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. They thought it was a good thing to be able to find some clues about Ao Lingxiao's background. They didn't expect such a thing to happen. Bailey Hongzhuang also frowned. Judging from Ao Lingxiao's expression, she knew it wasn't a simple matter. She wasn't unfamiliar with such a thing. After all, she had taken back the Lan clan with her parents. If they didn't have enough strength, it would be impossible to accomplish such a thing. Moreover, the aristocratic families of the upper realm were obviously very powerful. It was impossible for them to accomplish such a thing. Even if Di Baichen became a member of the Di family, he couldn't ask the entire Di family to help Ao Lingxiao take back the Lan clan. The Di family wouldn't be willing to do that. Senior brother Ao, it's not that we don't want to help you. It's just that we don't have the strength to do it. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She looked a little troubled. Previously, she felt that Ao Lingxiao was always in a bad mood. Something must have happened to him with such a strange temperament. At this moment, after knowing all of this, she felt that this matter was extraordinarily heavy. I'm not forcing you. It's just that I can't see any hope other than you guys. If you can't help me when the time comes, then forget it. If you can, I beg you to help me. From now on, my life is yours. Ao Lingxiao looked very serious. He had already thought it through. As long as Di Baichen agreed, he would follow Di Baichen's lead in the future. Looking at Ao Lingxiao, Di Baichen pondered for a moment. Although he hadn't known Ao Lingxiao for long, he knew that Ao Lingxiao was a trustworthy person. Thinking about it, Ao Lingxiao's current personality most likely had something to do with what happened back then. It was probably also related to his obsession that he couldn't pass the test. Senior brother Ao, get up first. Di Baichen said in a low voice. You have to tell me what happened to your family before I decide whether to help you or not. If Ao Lingxiao was truly harmed by a scoundrel, then as a friend, he would do his best to help. If that wasn't the case, then he naturally couldn't help. Seeing that Di Baichen had agreed, Ao Lingxiao understood that it was inappropriate for him to ask for Di Baichen's help. He immediately stood up and said, Okay. Actually, I'm from the upper realms Ao clan. Speaking of which, my clan has quite a bit of relationship with the Supreme Clan. Hearing this, Di Baichen and Ao Lingxiao didn't find it strange. If they didn't have some connections, Ao Lingxiao wouldn't have thought that Di Baichen was a member of the Di family just by looking at his appearance. My father was the clan lord of Ao clan, but he was suddenly killed 2 years ago. At that time, my elder brother and I were very surprised. We only wanted to find my father's murderer and avenge him. However, my father had already passed away at that time. So, the clan couldn't do without a clan lord. Therefore, everyone began to elect a new clan lord. My strength was stronger than my elder brother's. My father had also intended to pass the position of clan lord to me when he was still alive. Everyone in the clan knew this. Therefore, everything was logical. However, when I was about to ascend to the position of clan lord, an unforeseen event occurred in the clan. Chapter 38:25. At this point, Ao Lingxiao's eyes suddenly surged with anger. His eyes suddenly turned red as he gritted his teeth and said, That day, I still didn't know what had happened, but I found out that my mother had suddenly died. When I felt it, my mother was already on her last breath. She looked at me like that. Finally, she said my brother's name. I never thought that in order to obtain the patriarch's position, my big brother would even lay his hands on my mother. When I heard the news, I couldn't believe it. Before I could react, my brother had already brought all the elders of the family here and said that I had killed my mother, because the dagger that had pierced my mother's body was the one that I used most of the time. But only I knew that 2 days ago, My brother had said that he wanted to take a look and then took the dagger away. I didn't think much of it at that time. Who would have thought that it was my brother's plot? In order to become the head of the family, my brother had colluded with the June family and caused some of our family's properties to fall into the hands of the June family. However, my brother pushed all the blame to me and said that I was the one who had colluded with the June family. For this reason, he had arranged all kinds of evidence. The people of the June family also pointed out that I was the one who had done it. At that time, I couldn't defend myself. In the face of all kinds of evidence, my explanation was powerless. Since then, I had become a traitor in the eyes of the family. All the elders hated me even more. After doing this, my brother still wasn't satisfied and wanted to take my life. It was my wet nurse who secretly let me out. In the entire family, only she believed me. She believed that I wasn't the one who had done it. As for the matter of looking for you, it was also my wet nurse who told me. A trace of emotion flashed in Ao Ling Zhao's eyes. The expression of anger on his face was abnormally strong. Even though this whole thing had happened 2 years ago, to him it was as if it had happened yesterday. It was still vivid in his mind and he couldn't forget it. After this incident, I knew that my father's death was definitely related to the June family. All these years, the June family had always wanted to strengthen themselves, so they tried to annex all kinds of small families. Back then, not long after I fled, I was discovered by my big brother, Ao Lingjing. He chased me all the way. At that time, I was already exhausted. In the end, I was heavily injured by him. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to escape. However, since then, my cultivation has declined a lot, and I've become what I am now. As Ao Lingxiao spoke, his hands clenched into fists. In the past 2 years, I have been staying in Penglai Palace, but I have never forgotten about this matter. Taking back the clan is not the most important thing, but I must kill this bastard and avenge my parents. His dark eyes were bloodshot. Ao Lingxiao was filled with righteous indignation. His expression was pained, and there were tears at the corners of his eyes. He could not tolerate such a person continuing to be free and unfettered. His parents had raised him, but he had done such a thing that was worse than a pig or a dog. If he couldn't avenge his parents, then there was no justice in this world. Chapter 38:26. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard Ao Lingxiao's story, the two of them couldn't help but sigh. Killing one's own father and mother was something they couldn't imagine. If what Ao Lingxiao said was true, then Ao Lingjing was truly insane. They were only outsiders. When they heard all this, they couldn't bear it, let alone Ao Lingxiao who had to bear it all. No wonder Ao Lingxiao had always been alone. He didn't associate with anyone. Even his closest big brother had done such a thing. How could anyone else be trusted? If all that you say is true, he said softly. Di Beichen looked at Ao Lingxiao. When I have the ability, I will lend you a hand. He finally understood Ao Lingxiao's pain. No one would be able to accept such a thing, especially when he saw his own mother lying in a pool of blood. It was too cruel for him to admit that it was his elder brother who did it. Bailey Hongzhuang always felt that Lan Jingquang was insane. He was willing to kill his own brother for the position of househead. However, compared to Ao Lingxiao's brother, Lan Jingquang was much better. At least, Lan Jingquang didn't kill his own parent. Even if his grandfather didn't pass the position of househead to Lan Jingquang never thought of killing him. Not only that, Lan Jingquang didn't collude with anyone. He only wanted power. On the contrary, Ao Lingjing was insane. He would do anything to get what he wanted. This kind of person wasn't fit to be called a human. Ao Lingxiao's eyes lit up at Di Beichen's words. He looked at Di Beichen with excitement. Really? You're willing to help me? Di Beichen nodded. Yes. You believe what I said? I haven't known you for long, but I believe in your character. Di Beichen said. With Di Beichen's words, Ao Lingxiao felt as if his heart had been violently struck by something. An emotion called gratitude rose in his heart, almost causing him to cry. For the past 2 years, he had been silently enduring this pain and had never told anyone about it. This pain had been suppressed for too long. Under this pain, he simply could not be truly happy. If he didn't get his revenge, he would be like a walking corpse for the rest of his life. In fact, he also knew that if he were to ask Di Bachin for help so rashly, most people would not agree. If he were in Di Bachin's shoes, he probably would not agree either. After all, they had only known each other for a short while. There was no trust between them. However, Di Bachin actually said that he believed him. Ao Ling Xiao was willing to go through water and tread on fire for Di Bachin. It had only been 2 years, but it felt like 20 years to him. It had been a long time since he had come into contact with the Murlocs, and he had never thought that anyone would be willing to believe him. For a moment, Ao Ling Xiao was so emotional that he couldn't speak. He had secretly made up his mind. Whether Di Bachin was a member of the Di family or not, he would become friends with him. Just based on this trust, he would not let him down. Chapter 38:27. He had lived in the family for so many years. He thought that everyone would believe him. However, because of Ao Ling Jing's framing, no one believed him. He could never forget that no matter how he explained, no one in the family was willing to believe him. Those people were familiar with him. However, at that moment they didn't believe him. How sad was it that no one in the world was willing to believe him? Compared to those people whom he had always valued, Di Bachin was willing to believe him even though they had only known each other for a short time. How precious was this trust! Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised that Di Bachin would agree so directly. After all, they had only heard Ao Ling Zhao's explanation. They didn't know much about this matter. However, since Di Bachin had made such a decision, she would support it. Actually, this matter is somewhat related to the Di family as well. Ao Ling Xiao slowly said. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. What's involved? Our Ao family has always been on good terms with the Di family. That's because the Di family is fair and trustworthy. In comparison, the Jun family always likes to do things that cross borders. The Di family and the Jun family have always had grievances. The Jun family always wants to hurt the Di family. However, the Di family is very powerful. Although the Jun family always wants to hurt the Di family, they don't have any good opportunities. 2 years ago, the Jun family began to recruit small families in order to increase their strength. Although our Ao family can't be compared to the Di family and the Jun family, it's not a small family. If Ao Ling Jing really relies on the Jun family, then once they join forces against the Di family, I'm afraid this matter will be very troublesome. Ao Ling Xiao looked at Di Bachin. In fact, he also felt that Di Bachin could help him regain his family. That was because as long as he took back his family, the Jun family would become his enemy. He would never allow the Ao family to rely on the Jun family. However, he didn't expect that Di Bachin would agree before he could even mention this bargaining chip. This made him even more touched. In that case, isn't the Di family in a lot of trouble now? Di Bachin frowned. Now that he had finally found out about his past, he did not want anything to happen to the Di family. So far, I haven't heard of any changes in the Di family. However, there have been many small conflicts between the Jun family and the Di family since a long time ago. In fact, with the Di family's background, if the Jun family really wants to touch the Di family, it won't be done in a short period of time. Therefore, you don't need to be too worried right now. Ao Ling Xiao said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She understood the situation that Ao Ling Xiao was talking about. For such a huge monster, even if they were to fall, it wouldn't be something that could happen in a short period of time. Moreover, since the Jun family had been doing so many little things over the years, the Di family would definitely know about it. They must have taken precautions. So that's how it is. Di Bachin relaxed a bit. I don't know where this upper world is. How can we go there? Before today, he had never heard of the upper world. He also didn't know where the entrance was. Chapter 38:28. The entrance to the upper realm is actually at the training grounds of the inner palace disciples. Ao Lingxiao said. It's actually there? Bailey Hongzhuang was astonished. It was hard to imagine that a place where skeletons gathered was actually the entrance to the upper realm. Ao Lingxiao nodded. That's right, it's there. Not every cultivator can enter the upper realm. Only cultivators who have reached the star radiance realm and above have the qualifications to enter the upper realm. Otherwise, cultivators will not be able to pass through the barrier to enter the upper realm. In fact, if a cultivator doesn't have such powerful strength, it would be very difficult for them to reach the entrance to the upper realm from the training grounds. Generally speaking, one would need to at least be at the 9th level of the morale realm to be able to reach there. Because of this, only cultivators who have reached the 9th level of the purple realm and above on Penglai Island would know about the existence of the upper realm. Otherwise, knowing about it would only be a burden to them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also understood. Just as Ao Lingxiao had said, if one didn't have such a powerful strength and knew that there was such a terrifying existence in the Shengxian continent, anyone would feel a bit more pressure in their heart. This wasn't a good thing. It seems that Di Beichen and I are already able to enter the upper realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black phoenix eyes flickered with a bright light. The corner of her mouth slowly curled into a smile. It seemed that they had made the right choice to come to the Devil Training Tower. If they didn't succeed in the Devil Training Tower, it would take them a long time to break through to the Star Radiance realm. Now that they had just found out about Di Beichen's background, they already had the qualifications to enter the upper realm. This way, they could quickly head to the Di family to confirm Di Beichen's identity. Di Beichen also nodded. Now that he knew his true identity, he also wanted to head to the Di family to confirm it. If he was really a member of the Di family, then he could be considered to have found his own identity. Not to mention, according to Ao Lingxiao, the Di clan had been searching for him for so many years. It seemed that the reunion of the Di clan was something worth celebrating. Now, I can only hope that Yingying and Xiren will be able to successfully pass the trial. That way, their cultivations will also be able to rise to the astral boundary. Then, we can head to the upper realm together. Bailey Hongzhuang was excited. Presumably, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying would be very happy after hearing the news. However, Ao Lingxiao revealed a troubled expression. I'm afraid I can't go to the upper realm for now. Why? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She was puzzled. Previously, I was heavily injured, and my strength regressed too much. Now I have yet to recover to the Starlight Realm in such a short time. Ao Lingxiao had a difficult look on his face. This was something he was most unwilling to face. Originally, his cultivation was much higher than Ao Lingjing's. Ao Lingjing also knew this point, so he intentionally drugged him, causing his cultivation to drop a lot. Now, he actually didn't even have the qualifications to return to the upper realm. Thinking about it, ever since he came to Penglai Island, he didn't see Ao Lingjing chasing after him. He understood that this should be one of Ao Lingjing's plans. As long as he couldn't return to the upper realm, then he would never have any hope of taking back his family. Chapter 38:29. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but stare blankly at Ao Lingxiao's words. They hadn't thought that there would be such a problem. After all, Ao Lingxiao was the former clan lord of the Ao clan. Needless to say, he was very powerful. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been qualified for such a position. Even though he was seriously injured, they hadn't thought that Ao Lingxiao's cultivation would decline so much. If it wasn't for the fact that my cultivation couldn't recover and I couldn't enter the upper world, I wouldn't have stayed on Penglai Island for 2 years. I would have gone to find Ao Lingjing to take revenge. Ao Lingxiao's eyes flashed with resentment. Ao Lingjing had destroyed everything. He had gone against his father's original intention and colluded with the Jun clan. He was a traitor to the clan. As long as he had the chance, he would never let Ao Lingjing do such a thing. He had even thought that as long as he killed Ao Lingjing, at least the clan would continue to exist. Otherwise, with the Jun clan's ambition, they might annex the Ao clan at any time. You've been mistaken as a traitor to the clan. With your current strength, you can't get close to Ao Lingjing. It's better not to be impulsive. It's better to cultivate properly and wait for the right opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. She could understand the anger in Ao Lingzhao's heart. But this was definitely not a wise move. Fortunately, Ao Lingzhao's strength hadn't reached the Starlight Realm. Otherwise, he would have disappeared from this world long ago. Since Ao Lingjing could kill his father and mother, killing Ao Lingxiao wouldn't be a problem for him. Ao Lingxiao sighed. Indeed, with my current appearance, I'm no different from a cripple. He couldn't help but loosen his hands. His complexion was very dejected. He wanted to take revenge for his parents. But, with his current strength, he couldn't even get close to Ao Lingjing. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. Don't be too anxious. Bailey Hongzhuang comforted. Even if Ao Lingjing wants to rely on the Jun clan, the relationship between the Jun clan and the Ao clan isn't good. It won't be easy for him to promote cooperation between the two. At the very least, he absolutely cannot push this matter too quickly, otherwise it will inevitably arouse the suspicions of the people in your family. Therefore, for a short period of time, he will know his place. You don't have to worry. Hongzhuang is right. Since your big brother wants to be the patriarch of the Ao clan, then he will definitely be very careful in his actions. The scene that you imagine will not happen so quickly, so you still have time to change everything. I hope so. Ao Lingxiao nodded. It was precisely because he knew this that he was able to endure until now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to restrain his temper. However, 2 years had already passed, and he still couldn't enter the upper realms gate. This feeling was driving him crazy. However, senior brother Ao still can't enter the upper realm. What should we do? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. She hoped that Di Beichen could reunite with his family as soon as possible. According to Ao Lingxiao, breaking through to the Starlight Realm wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. If they stayed here and waited for Ao Lingxiao to break through, then it would be hard to say how long it would take. At this time, Ao Lingxiao took the lead and said, "You can go ahead first. When I recover my strength, I will go find you." Chapter 38:30. In any case, Ao Lingxiao wouldn't be able to take back the Ao family in a short period of time. Di Beichen was the first to go and meet his family. This would help Ao Lingxiao lay a good foundation when the time came. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible to help Ao Lingxiao take back the Ao family with just the few of them. Senior brother Ao, if we go first, then you have to cultivate harder and try to recover as soon as possible, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. Previously, they didn't know why Ao Lingxiao approached them, so they were always on guard. Now that she knew everything, she was completely relaxed. They were closer than before, without the estrangement from before. Because of Di Beichen's promise, Ao Lingxiao also felt relieved. At the very least, his path to taking back his family was no longer as hopeless as before. Perhaps he really would succeed one day. Thinking of this, Ao Lingxiao's face finally showed a trace of a smile. I will try my best to recover as soon as possible. Since that incident, his life's goal had been to take back the Ao family. He wouldn't let his family be deceived by Ao Lingjing, and he wouldn't let the Jun family's scheme succeed. For this, he didn't care what price he had to pay. After saying all this, Ao Lingxiao left. In the past, because he couldn't see any hope in his cultivation, he was a little lazy. Now that he finally found a glimmer of hope, he wanted to cultivate in seclusion and increase his cultivation as soon as possible. As long as his cultivation recovered, his hope of taking back the Ao family would be closer. After all, if he wanted to deal with Ao Lingjing personally, he had to be strong enough. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to avenge his parents. After Ao Ling Xiao left, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen. Beichen, do you believe senior brother Ao Assex's words so much? Di Beichen nodded. Although Ao Ling Xiao and I have not known each other for a long time, I also know that he is not a crazy person. Even if he really wants me to help him take back his family, there is no need for him to make up something like killing his parents. Since he said so, this matter must exist. When the time comes, we can ask around and find out. Do you think Ao Ling Xiao is the kind of person who would kill his parents? Bailey Hongzhuang heard this and shook her head. No. Bailey Hongzhuang's answer was very certain. Even if she couldn't guarantee that she was 100% accurate, she believed that Ling Xiao wasn't the kind of person who would do such a crazy thing. So, Di Beichen spread his hands. Since we all feel that he is not such a person, then the possibility that what he said is true is very high. I didn't expect Ao Ling Xiao to have experienced something like this. No wonder he is so reclusive now. If it was anyone else who had experienced something like this, their temperament would have changed. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed and shook her head. She could imagine Ao Lingxiao's incredulous expression when he found out about this. It was really like a heavy blow. Chapter 38-31. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded in agreement. After listening to Ao Lingxiao's story, she felt that Ao Lingjing was a very scary person. After all, there weren't many evil people in this world who could reach such a level. Not only that, but he was able to arrange all kinds of evidence so seamlessly that the entire Ao family didn't believe Ao Ling Xiao. It could be seen how meticulous he was. Ao Ling Xiao was stronger than Ao Lingjing in terms of strength, but in terms of intelligence, Ao Lingjing was probably not as good as Ao Lingjing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been kept in the dark for so many years until the very last moment. Ao Ling Xiao's strength has dropped so much that even he can't accept it. That's why he's like this now. Bailey Hongzhuang's light voice carried a bit of a sigh. However, after you agreed to help him, I noticed that his eyes were blooming with spirit. His mood was completely different from before. He only became like this because he felt that he had no hope. Now that he's pulled himself together, the speed of his breakthrough should be greatly increased. Di Beichen smiled faintly. However, this matter can't be rushed. It's not something that can be done in a short period of time. Although Ao Ling Xiao spoke with certainty, they couldn't be sure that this was Di Beichen's true identity until they received confirmation from the Di family. Right now, I only hope that Yingying and the others can succeed. That way we can go to the upper realm. I really didn't expect the Shengxian continent to be divided into two continents. However, this is more in line with the Shengxian continent I knew before. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile. After so many years, I don't know if there are any families that existed 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years was a long time, but for those monsters, it wasn't impossible for them to persist for such a long time. After transmigrating for so long, she had already accepted her current identity. However, she still missed her previous life. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression and had already guessed what she was thinking. He immediately said, I hope the Bailey family still exists. When the time comes, I will accompany you to take a look. Of course, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't reveal her original identity. Even if she did, no one would believe her. However, he understood the feelings that Bailey Hongzhuang had for the Bailey family. As long as she could see that the Bailey family was doing well, her heart would be comforted. Listening to Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's face could not help but soften a little, and her eyes became distant and deep. If it is really still there, then it would be good. Back then, when she accidentally transmigrated, she didn't give any instructions or make any arrangements. This has always been a regret in her heart. If the Bailey family can't be passed down well because of her departure, then she will be the sinner of the Bailey family. Seeing the hope in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, Di Beichen couldn't help but hold her hand. His voice was low but full of strength. Yes, they will definitely be here. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen returned to the challenge area, Mo Yunjue was still standing alone outside the challenge area. Chapter 38-32. He's busy cultivating in seclusion. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue nodded, but the surprise in his eyes did not dissipate. So that's how it is. He has been cultivating very hard recently. Now that our cultivation has reached the Starlight Realm, he naturally has the pressure. If he doesn't cultivate hard, it will be difficult for him to catch up with us. While speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and winked at Di Beichen. Ao Lingxiao actually only told them about this matter. Presumably, he didn't want others to know about it. Since Ao Lingxiao didn't want to say it, they naturally wouldn't say it. Moreover, Di Beichen's identity had not been confirmed yet. It was too early to say all this. Master, as long as Yingying and the others pass smoothly, we can return to Penglai Palace in 3 days, right? Xiao He ran out of the Chaos Ring. When Ao Lingxiao spoke before, they also heard it clearly. It really wanted to see where the entrance to the upper realm was. It had only been 1,000 years. They didn't expect the situation in Xingxian continent to have changed so much. It was really beyond their expectations. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. As long as Yingying and the others pass smoothly, our goal in Penglai Palace has been achieved. We can go back directly. That's great. Xiao He jumped and clapped. But after we go back, our first task is to deal with Chu Yunyao. Xiao He was very unhappy with this guy. There were many cultivators on Penglai Island who made it unhappy, but there was only one person who could make it feel disgusted like Chu Yunyao. When it thought of how Chu Yunyao looked down on its master, it wanted to teach this guy a lesson. He really looked down on people. Seeing Xiao He mention Chu Yunyao, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened. After we go back this time, Chu Yunyao will definitely not be our opponent. At that time, we will naturally take revenge. As for Chu Yunyao, Bailey Hongzhuang was also extremely disgusted. If Chu Yunyao had done all this for her, it would not have been like this. However, Chu Yunyao had involved Shangguan Yingying in it and let her suffer such torture, which was the most unbearable thing for her. The reason why Shangguan Yingying had suffered such a serious injury was all because of her. If she couldn't avenge Shangguan Yingying, she would never be able to vent her anger. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen couldn't help but smile. In my opinion, you don't even need to do anything. Yingying and Xiren won't let her off so easily. If Xiren's strength had also reached the Star Radiance realm, then he believed that the first thing Xiren would do after returning was to kill Chu Yunyao. Because Shangguan Yingying's position in his heart was irreplaceable, Chu Yunyao's actions at that time had already touched Xiren's reverse scale, so he would definitely make a move. This was his understanding of his brother. Bailey Hongzhuang also understood that compared to her, Xiren definitely hated Chu Yunyao more. But since Xiren wants to make a move, then I will not come forward. This matter will be handed over to him, okay? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Thinking about it, the situation was like this. Chapter 38-33. After Shangguan Yingying and when Xiren entered the room, many cultivators in the Demon Training Tower paid close attention to the two of them. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had succeeded in succession, everyone was very envious. Now that Shangguan Yingying and when Xiren had also entered the room, they were very curious as to whether the two of them would succeed. If the two of them also succeeded, then the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and her team would really be too abnormal. They were clearly only in their 20s, yet they all had such strength. How could it not be amazing? Everyone was even certain that once when Xiren and her team succeeded, then Bailey Hongzhuang and her team would definitely become the most terrifying team on Penglai Island. From what I see, not all of them will succeed. Didn't the cultivator who came with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also fail? The cultivator that everyone was talking about was naturally Ao Lingxiao. Ao Lingxiao had not appeared with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others many times before, but he was still noticed by many people. Therefore, when Ao Lingxiao was about to enter the room, everyone also paid attention to him. When they saw that he had failed, everyone let out a sigh of relief, finally giving them some comfort. That man doesn't seem to be very close to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. They rarely appear together and we haven't seen them for a few days. However, Wen Ziren and Wen Xinya are different. They have always been together. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two sat on the ground, closed their eyes and began to cultivate, directly blocking out the noise around them. Although everything they saw when they were breaking through the room was an illusion, Bailey Hongzhuang was very happy. Her demon summoning scripture had indeed evolved and was not an illusion. Following the evolution of the demon summoning scripture, her cultivation speed had also increased. It was really something to be happy about. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating, Baisher's surprised voice suddenly rang in her ears. "Master, let me tell you some good news." Baisher's voice was filled with excitement and agitation. It was as if he could not wait to tell her the news. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, a trace of surprise in her eyes as she asked, "What good news?" "A new stone room has finally been opened in the Chaos Ring." Hearing Baisher's words, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be taken aback. Her pitch-black beautiful eyes immediately surged with surprise. "Are you telling the truth?" White Lion nodded. "It's true. I only just discovered it. Just now, it was bored and strolled around the Chaos Ring a few times. However, when it was strolling around, it suddenly discovered that there was an additional door. After taking a closer look, it discovered that a new stone room had been opened in the Chaos Ring. Once it had realized this, it had immediately come to tell Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, the appearance of a new door was a great help to Bailey Hongzhuang. "That's great." Bailey Hongzhuang was overjoyed. It had been a long time since a new door had been opened in the Chaos Ring. Chapter 38-34. When she thought of this, Bailey Hongzhuang almost wanted to immediately enter the Chaos Ring to take a look. Unfortunately, there were too many cultivators outside the challenge room, so it was not convenient for her to check. The three beasties were also extremely excited in the Chaos Ring. They were all guessing what would appear in the new stone room this time. Now that Master had already mastered many things, what would appear in the new stone room that would be beneficial to Master? "Master, do you want to come over and take a look now?" Xiao He could not help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment before shaking her head. "Forget it, I'll go in and take a look after Ying and the others are done." Since the door to the stone room was already open, there was no need to rush. She had run back several times, so others would not know what had happened. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasties understood what she was thinking. They immediately said, "Then we'll wait for Master to come back before going in to take a look." "Good." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile as she said in a gentle voice. Di Beichen also noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang was mumbling something. It was obvious that she was communicating with the three beasties. He could not help but chuckle. "Wife, what are you mumbling to Xiao He and the others about?" "I'm not telling you." Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be mysterious as she blinked and stuck out her tongue playfully. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's lively and playful appearance, Di Beichen's eyes couldn't help but deepen a bit, and his heart softened. His wife was very charming no matter how he looked at her. She was different and had a different style. To him, no matter how he looked at her, he would never get tired of looking at her. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two waited outside the challenge room just like that. As time gradually passed, the joy in their hearts grew stronger. As long as Ziren and Wen Xinyao were still in the breakthrough room, they would continue to challenge the breakthrough. As long as they persisted for one more day, they would have passed one more breakthrough. As long as they did not come out, it meant that they had a high chance of passing the breakthrough. After Long Yanwei and Izihua found out that Xiren and Wenxinya had started to challenge the level, they had nothing better to do, so they came to the challenge area to take a look. Later on, they simply waited outside with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two, waiting for Wenxinya and Wenxinya to come out. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were extremely surprised and amused at the same time. Long Yanwei and Izihua really didn't put on any airs in front of them. Bailey Hongzhuang, during this period of time, Penglai Palace has produced a lot of healing medicine. Now, in addition to supplying Penglai Palace's disciples, it has also gradually begun to be sold outside. Long Yanwei saw Bailey Hongzhuang. During this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had not been in Penglai Palace. Presumably, she didn't know much about this matter. Has it already begun to be sold outside? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She didn't expect Penglai Palace to be so fast. Long Yanwei nodded. The first batch of healing medicine was first supplied to Penglai Palace's disciples. It wasn't until there was a surplus of healing medicine that it began to be sold outside. In fact, if it wasn't to be more certain of the effect of this healing medicine, Penglai Palace would have sold it outside even faster. After all, the number of people in Penglai Palace was far from what ordinary forces could compare to. Once it was put into production, the speed was naturally not slow. Chapter 38-35. According to Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment, although she had already handed over the prescription to Penglai Palace must first verify the effect of this healing medicine. What's more, the number of cultivators in Penglai Palace was not small. Even if the healing medicine was made, they must provide it to the disciples in the palace as soon as possible. It would take some time to sell it to the outside. Now it seemed that Penglai Palace really had a lot of people and their speed was so fast. Now this healing medicine has only just begun to be sold. I'm afraid it will take some time for it to be accepted by everyone. However, according to the effect that we have verified, I believe that it will not be long before this healing medicine will be accepted by everyone. Long Yanwei's face was filled with a shallow smile. Even though he already knew that the effect of this healing medicine was very outstanding, according to the information provided by the cultivators in the palace, the effect of this healing medicine was still outstanding and beyond everyone's expectations. If Bailey Hongzhuang had not become a disciple of Penglai Palace, her medical skills alone would be enough to become a master of Penglai Island. Speaking of which, their Penglai Palace still had an advantage in this matter. Therefore, Long Yanwei also remembered Bailey Hongzhuang's friendship in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. It just took a few more days. I believe that Penglai Palace's business will be very good in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang had always been very confident about the effect of her healing medicine. After the first batch of healing medicine is sold, I think you will become a rich woman. Izihua smiled and joked. As soon as this was said, Di Baichen and Mo Yunjue could not help but laugh. 20% of the entire sect's healing medicine sales belonged to Bailey Hongzhuang. This profit was indeed not small. Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Then I hope that Penglai Palace's sales will get better and better. In this way, I will also be a rich person in the future. Long Yanwei's lips curled into a smile. In fact, they all knew very well that with Bailey Hongzhuang's ability, if she wanted money, it was absolutely easy. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and others were talking and laughing, suddenly, a movement attracted their attention. For a moment, everyone's eyes looked at the breakthrough room because they clearly noticed that the movement came from the breakthrough room. Bailey Hongzhuang and others also frowned. At this moment, it was not even 3 days and there was movement in the breakthrough room. Could it be that there was a problem? Just as they hesitated, the door of the breakthrough room suddenly opened. Shangguan Ying slowly walked out of the breakthrough room. She looked like she had lost her soul, and her eyes were filled with dejection. Seeing Shangguan Yingying to Yingying, are you okay? Shangguan Yingying to Yinjing's to Shangguan Yingying's, Hongzhuang, Shangguan Yingying's was, Pales is. Shangguan Yingying glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang, as if she had suddenly found her pillar of support. She tightly grasped Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, the corners of her eyes were still filled with tears. Hongzhuang, I'm fine. She shook her head. Originally, she did not understand the difficulty of the breakthrough that everyone was talking about. She did not understand why everyone looked like they had lost their souls after coming out. It was not until she experienced it that she realized how difficult it was. This kind of scene was really difficult to bear. At the same time, she also understood how difficult it was for Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two to persevere. Chapter 38-36. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Shangguan Yingying worriedly. Although she said she was fine, her expression clearly said that she was not. Bailey Hongzhuang helped Shangguan Yingying to sit down at the side. She sighed in her heart. The inheritance of the demon training tower attacked one's heart. If one's mind was not firm enough, it was very easy to be confused or even injured. In fact, before she started the challenge, even she herself didn't know that she would have these problems. Therefore, even if everyone thought that they had no problems, they would only realize that they weren't as powerful as they thought they were after entering the trial. She was actually a little worried about Shangguan Yingying. Because Shangguan Yingying was different from cultivators like them who had always been wandering outside. Her cultivation path had always been very smooth. Since young, she was the pearl of the Cloud Sword sect. No one dared to bully her. Although she had made great progress now, there were still many problems that she could not control. There was still a certain distance to completely overcome. Before this, Bailey Hongzhuang had guessed that Shangguan Yingying might encounter a test. Just the second test of the Mountain of Corpses and Sea of Blood was probably unbearable for her, because it was really too lonely. Even Bailey Hongzhuang herself had felt lost and lonely in that blood-red world. Shangguan Yingying had never come into contact with such a thing. She probably could not accept it just by noticing the shocking scene, let alone having to stay in there for such a long time. Yingying, are you all right? Di Beichen asked with concern. Shangguan Yingying sat down and drank some water. Only then did her spirit recover a little. She nodded, but her expression was still filled with frustration and helplessness. I'm already fine. It's just that I failed this test. Bailey Hongzhuang held Shangguan Yingying's hand. It's no big deal if you fail. There will be chances in the future. The content of this test is really too abnormal. I didn't think so before, but after experiencing it, I only feel that it's really terrifying. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Seeing Shangguan Yingying quickly recover her previous vitality, Yizihua could not help but chuckle. No one has obtained the inheritance of the demon training tower for over 100 years. You have to get rid of the demon in your heart. This is already very abnormal. It's no big deal if you fail. I failed too. Shangguan Yingying smiled at Yizihua and said, Instructor Yi, are you comforting me with your own experience? Of course. Yizihua looked at Shangguan Yingying helplessly. If you weren't so depressed, I wouldn't have told you about my shameful past. It is precisely because of the difficulty of this trial that the inheritance of the demon refining tower is so precious. That is why the inheritor has such an extraordinary weight. Long Yanwei looked at Shangguan Yingying. Actually, it's not a big deal if you can't get rid of the inner demons. There are too many people in this world who can't get rid of it. However, cultivators who could break through the demonic barrier would definitely be able to go further. This was because they had the heart of a fearless powerhouse. Really? Shangguan Yingying looked at Long Yanwei expectantly. She saw that everyone had succeeded, so she also hoped that she could succeed. Now that she had failed, it was a huge blow to her. Chapter 38-37. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Shangguan Yingying with a faint smile in her eyes. She had been a little sad when she saw that Shangguan Yingying had failed, but now, she found it very interesting when she saw Shangguan Yingying's innocent look. At their level, it was rare to see someone as simple-minded as Shangguan Yingying. It was very rare. Lord Long, Instructor thank you. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with gratitude. She was not stupid and naturally knew that Long Yanwei and Hua were comforting her. When she had first found out that she had failed, she had indeed been very sad. However, after hearing everyone's comforting words, she felt much better. Everyone wanted to succeed, but there were very few who had actually succeeded. Furthermore, she knew very well that there was a large gap between her and Hong Zhuang. Such an outcome was not unexpected. However, when all of this had really happened, she still felt a little sad in her heart. Seeing that Shangguan Yingying had returned to normal so quickly, Long Yanwei and Hua could not help but smile faintly. When they had first met Shangguan Yingying, they had already known that this girl's thoughts were extremely pure. At their level, it was very rare to see someone with such a pure mind. Thinking about it, she must have grown up under everyone's protection. Now that they had interacted with each other, they felt that it was very rare. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. It won't be too late to try again when you feel that you can break through that evil barrier. Bailey Hongzhuang comforted Shangguan Yingying. One failure was nothing. There would be many opportunities in the future. Shangguan Yingying nodded slightly. I will work hard. I hope that I can succeed next time. However, this illusion is just too realistic. When I first entered, I thought that it was just an illusion and that there was nothing to be afraid of. However, after entering, I found that everything was out of my control. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed in her heart. She had also experienced this point. This was the power of the devil training pagoda. If not for this, how could she have been bewitched with her intelligence? Indeed, there is no use in believing that this is an illusion. You must really overcome it. Otherwise, the illusion will use countless methods to make you believe that everything is real. This kind of challenge is too perverse. Shangguan Yingying muttered with a sigh. Even though she had already come out of the illusion, she still shuddered when she recalled the scenes that had happened before. Master, Yingying has failed. What should we do? Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with helplessness. Now that they had finally found out about Di Beichen's origins, both Master and Di Beichen wanted to go to the Di family in the upper realm as soon as possible. However, in order to ascend to the upper realm, one had to be at the Starlight realm. However, Shangguan Yingying had failed to ascend to the upper realm. With her current cultivation at the 7th level of the Purple realm, it would take her quite some time to reach the Starlight realm. If I want to go with them, I'm afraid I'll have to wait on Penglai Island for a while. Xiao Bai sighed. Originally, Shangguan Yingying's failure was not a big deal, but now that she was involved in this matter, it was very troublesome. White Lion nodded. But Di Beichen hasn't seen his family for more than 20 years. Are we going to continue waiting? Chapter 38:38. Hearing the discussion of the three beasties, Bailey Hongzhuang's mood was very complicated. She only hoped that Yingying and Di Beichen would succeed. This way, they would definitely become cultivators of the Starlight realm. Unfortunately, Yingying had already failed. No matter if Ziren succeeded or not, he would definitely be with Yingying. Then what should she and Beichen do? Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang subconsciously glanced at Di Beichen. With Beichen's personality, he would definitely insist on staying and wait for Yingying and Di Beichen to set off together. Perhaps Xiao Bai was right. Since they had already waited for so many years, waiting a little longer would not be a problem. After all, Ziren and Di Beichen did not want the two of them to be alone on Penglai Island. Therefore, they definitely could not abandon Ziren and Di Beichen. Fortunately, Ziren is still persevering. Hopefully, Ziren will succeed. Shangguan Yingying looked hopefully at the door of the breakthrough room, which was still tightly shut. When Ziren was currently inside, she had already failed. Ziren still had hope. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but look at the tightly closed door of the room. They only hoped that when Ziren would be able to persevere. Seeing this scene, Long Yanwei and Izihua also felt a little emotional. Thinking back, they had also come here to try, but they did not succeed. Talking about this point, they could not compare to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. The surrounding cultivators had already known that there was no technique in this room when they saw Shangguan Yingying come out. Otherwise, with the experience of the three people, Shangguan Yingying would not have failed. After a few more hours, a series of noises suddenly came from the breakthrough room again. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. If they didn't hear wrongly, this voice seemed to come from the room where Ziren was. Everyone couldn't help but frown when they heard the voice. It wasn't time yet. Could it be that Ziren also failed? Shangguan Yingying's expression was somewhat complicated. She knew how much Ziren cared about this challenge. In order to succeed, Ziren had worked extremely hard. Back then, when he failed to pass the blood refining tower, he had always remembered it in his heart. Therefore, he had always placed all his hopes on the demon refining tower. He only hoped that he could succeed this time. If Ziren were to fail again this time, the blow he would receive would definitely be greater than hers. This was definitely not a situation she wanted to see. However, no matter how unwilling Shangguan Yingying was, it still happened. The door to the room opened and Ziren's figure slowly appeared in everyone's sight. Seeing this, Shangguan Yingying immediately ran over. Her face was filled with worry and concern. She said, "Ziren, how are you?" When Ziren looked at Shangguan Yingying beside him, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. "Yingying? Yes, I'm here." Shangguan Yingying nodded. Ziren's expression changed a little. He understood that Yingying had also failed. It seemed that he had underestimated the difficulty of this test. No wonder so many cultivators had failed. It was simply too difficult. It seemed that Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue were really three geniuses. Chapter 38-39. After seeing that Ziren had also come out, Long Yanwei and Izihua exchanged glances. In fact, they were also very curious about the results of Ziren and Shangguan Yingying. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's performance was too outstanding. If when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying could also do this, then they really couldn't help but sigh at the emergence of geniuses in batches. When did the cultivators of the outside world become so outstanding? Now it seemed that this wasn't the emergence of a batch of geniuses. It was just the appearance of a few extremely outstanding young people. "Ziren, are you okay?" Di Beichen looked at Ziren, his handsome eyes filled with concern. After experiencing all this, he understood this feeling. After entering this challenge room, they would see the scene that they didn't want to see the most. Even if they knew that everything was fake after coming out, they would still feel very uncomfortable in their hearts. Ziren waved his hand. His mental state was clearly much better than when Shangguan Yingying first came out, but that trace of depression and sadness could not be concealed. He grew up with Di Beichen since he was young, but he had never been able to beat Di Beichen in so many years. Although he had long been used to it, this failure still made him feel a little uncomfortable. "I'm fine. I'm just a little sad that I didn't succeed." Looking at Ziren's depressed appearance, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but say, "Ziren, one failure is no big deal. Life is full of opportunities. Just because you didn't succeed this time doesn't mean that you won't succeed next time. I'm with you. Next time we'll try again together." Seeing that Shangguan Yingying used the comforting method that everyone used to comfort her so quickly, everyone felt that it was very funny. This Shangguan Yingying was really heartless. Not long ago she was so depressed, but now she seemed to be completely fine. She wasn't affected at all. Ziren turned around and saw Shangguan Yingying's worried look. He immediately pulled himself together. No matter what, he didn't want Shangguan Yingying to worry about him. "Yingying, you don't have to worry about me. I'm fine. I can still take this little blow." Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but smile. Ziren, I knew you would definitely pull yourself together. Of course. Ziren raised his eyebrows. It's just a blow. It's nothing. Hee hee. Shangguan Yingying also smiled. Let's try it together next time. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were originally very worried that Shangguan Yingying would not be able to take the blow. However, judging from their current situation, it seemed that they did not need any consolation at all. The two of them had completely recovered by themselves. Yingying is really Ziren's medicine. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen next to her. She had noticed that Ziren's expression was very strange when he came out. Although Shangguan Yingying's expression was much better than Ziren's when she came out, she could see that Ziren had suffered a heavier blow than her. But now, with just a few words from Shangguan Yingying, when Ziren had already recovered. This kind of recovery was not an act, but a real one. This was not an ordinary kind of power. Chapter 3840. Di Beichen had known Ziren for so many years and knew his character very well. Although he would feel disappointed if he failed the challenge, he was never one to give up easily. He would quickly pull himself together again. Furthermore, Shangguan Yingying was by his side. In front of the woman he loved the most, he would never allow himself to be dispirited. Hence, it was within his expectations that he would pull himself together so quickly. After all, the challenge of the Devil Training Tower was not that easy to pass. So many people present had not been able to pass the challenge, so his failure naturally did not count as much. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes could not help but soften. The relationship between the two of them is indeed very good. Although Ziren and Shangguan Yingying had always bickered with each other, after this period of interaction, he knew very well just how deep the relationship between the two of them was. This kind of love that they had for each other since they were young had seeped into every detail of their lives. At this moment, Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and could not help but frown. Could it be that my wife feels that our relationship is not good enough? Or that my performance at night was not good enough? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. After understanding the meaning behind Di Beichen's words, her cheeks quickly flushed red. She glared angrily at Di Beichen. What nonsense are you spouting? Di Beichen chuckled. My wife is not dissatisfied. Then I'm relieved. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen's devilish smile and felt a wave of helplessness in her heart. She could only be bullied by this guy in terms of words. It seems that there is no technique involved in this challenge. Otherwise, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying would not have failed. That may not be the case. Perhaps they did not really tell Ziren and Shangguan Yingying the technique. If that's the case, then even if we find a way to ask them, they won't tell us. The cultivators present sighed one after another. They had originally thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had the skills to clear the stage, and had only wanted to ask them for advice. However, judging from the current situation, it was clear that the situation was not as simple as they thought. Killing Chi Field, that was an extremely powerful inheritance. Once one obtained it, one's strength would definitely be different from before. Moreover, the rewards after passing this trial were also extremely shocking. In the past, it was fine if no one succeeded, but now that someone had succeeded and they didn't know how to do it, they were naturally very depressed. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest stood where they were, feeling the gazes of the crowd. They frowned as they listened to the discussions. Let's go back first, Bailey Hongzhuang said. All right. When Ziren nodded. There were so many people here that it was not a good place to talk. Then we'll go back first. If you decide when to return to Penglai Palace, let us know and we'll go back together, Long Yanwei said slowly. According to his plan, they would be able to leave after when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying had finished clearing the stage. However, since they had not succeeded in clearing the stage, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying would probably need some time to recover their emotions. They might as well not disturb them. Hearing this, Di Baichen nodded. All right. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other four left, Mo Yunjue did not stay for long. Instead, he returned to the cultivation area to cultivate. Chapter 38-41. I didn't expect both of us to fail. How depressing, when Ziren couldn't help but sigh as soon as he entered the room. His expression was full of helplessness. Previously, in front of others, he still had some scruples. Now that there was only Di Baichen and Shangguaning, there was naturally no need to hide anything. It's okay. Won't there be another chance in the future? Who knows, we might succeed next time, Di Baichen said. When Ziren shrugged helplessly, although that's the case, this kind of demonic barrier isn't something that can be easily broken. If we can't break it now, we might not be able to break it in 10 or 20 years, or even in this lifetime. The inner demon barrier was only related to one's state of mind. It had nothing to do with age or strength. Perhaps as they grew older and stronger, their obsession would become stronger and stronger. It would be even more difficult to break the inner demon barrier. If that wasn't the case, it wouldn't have remained unsolved for so many years. This proved that if everyone failed the first time, no matter how many times they tried, they still couldn't break it. What's more, seeing the scene that he didn't want to see the most wasn't a good feeling. Don't worry. Take it slow. Maybe you'll be able to figure it out one day, Bailey Hongzhuang comforted gently. This kind of thing really couldn't be rushed. Only when one's state of mind reached a certain level could they break it. The more anxious they were, the more obsessed they were, and the less likely it was to succeed. That's right. Anyway, we're still young. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Why rush? Shangguan Yingying looked at Ziren, and her eyes suddenly softened. In my heart, you've always been the best. Even if you can't break through the inner demon barrier, what's so great about that? Hearing Shangguan Yingying's words, Ziren couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at the former in astonishment and even wondered if he had heard wrongly. In the next second, when Ziren suddenly rushed in front of Shangguan Yingying, he excitedly held Shangguan Yingying's hand, and his eyes flashed with disbelief. Yingying, did you just say that I'm the best in your heart? Looking at Ziren's excited appearance, Shangguan Yingying's expression was a little stiff and even a little shy. Compared to such warm words of praise, she felt more comfortable scolding him on a daily basis. However, thinking about how Ziren had suffered a huge blow today, Shangguan Yingying nodded and said, That's right. After receiving Shangguan Yingying's confirmation again, Ziren couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. Yingying, I've been with you for so long, and this is the first time you've spoken the truth. As soon as these words came out, Shangguan Yingying, Di Baichen, and Bailey Hongzhuang were all stunned. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such a shameless person. Shangguan Yingying suddenly felt that there was no need for her to comfort him. She rolled her eyes and said, I was just lying to comfort you. However, Ziren didn't care at all. He smiled and shrugged. Yingying, you've already spoken the truth. I know everything you're saying now is just because you're shy. I understand. Shangguan Yingying looked at Ziren speechlessly. Her face was full of anger, but deep in her eyes there was a deep smile. Chapter 38-42. Inside the room. Di Baichen, what are your plans now? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Baichen. Originally, after talking with Ao Lingxiao, they had already made a decision. However, the current situation was slightly different from what they had expected. Di Baichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and immediately understood what she meant. He said, Since Ziren and Yingying have not successfully broken through to the Starlight Realm, then we can only wait here for them to break through before we go. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She had already guessed that Di Baichen would make such a decision. Therefore, she did not find it strange. Then we will wait here for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. You think so too? Di Baichen raised his eyebrows. Clearly, he did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to agree without saying anything. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and leaned on Di Beichen's shoulder. Her voice was gentle and pleasant. No matter what decision you make, I will support you. Actually, I have the same thoughts as you. Long ago, I had already guessed your decision. You have always been a righteous person. Xiren and Yingying have done so much for us. Naturally, we cannot abandon them and leave. Di Beichen nodded slightly and reached out to play with Bailey Hongzhuang's soft and boneless hand. No one knows me better than Hongzhuang. Since so many years have passed since my birth, there is no need to be anxious. Now that I have some clues from Ao Lingxiao, although I feel that the possibility is very high, it is not necessarily so. After all, the world is so big and there are so many strange things. Anything can happen by coincidence. Di Beichen's deep eyes were calm. So many years had passed, and he had seen a lot of things about his own life. It would be good if he could find his birth parent. However, if he could not, it would not become his regret. Now that he knew, it was just a matter of waiting a few days to meet them. It did not affect anything. On the contrary, Xiren was his brother for more than 20 years. Naturally, he would not ignore him. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. You are right. Actually, whether it is Xiren or Yingying, their cultivation talent is very powerful. I think it will not take them too long to reach the Starlight Realm. That's right. In this way, we can also wait until Ao Lingxiao reaches the Starlight Realm. Then, we can go to the Upper Realm together. Di Beichen smiled faintly. We don't know anything about that place. It's good to have one more acquaintance. If we have nothing to do tomorrow, let's return to Penglai Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes became deep. We have been here for several months. It is time to go back and settle the score with Penglai Palace. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other, their eyes filled with joy. That was then, and this is now. Compared to the situation when they first arrived, their strength had greatly improved. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others packed their bags and set off to return to Penglai Palace. Long Yanwei and Easy Hua walked in front, while the 5 of them followed behind. Steward Qin also came to send them off after knowing that they were leaving. Come back to me when you have time in the future. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others nodded. Of course, of course. Master Long, Mentor E, you must come back to my place as a guest next time. Chapter 38-43. Steward Qin looked at the 2 of them with envy and helplessness in his heart. Speaking of which, it was he who first met Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. It was also he who first discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang had such powerful medical skills. It was a pity that he failed to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang. Instead, he let Penglai Palace take advantage of it. Penglai Palace was the #1 force on Penglai Island. It was obviously impossible for him to compete with Penglai Palace. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 obtained the inheritance in the Demon Refining Tower. As a result, even Mo Yunjue joined Penglai Palace. In comparison, Penglai Palace was the one with the most face. As the steward of the Demon Refining Tower, his heart was naturally very bitter. He didn't grasp the great opportunity. What a pity, it was really a pity. Thinking of this, Steward Qin couldn't help but think of the Golden Flame auction house. If the auction house wasn't unwilling to sell the Tears of Cold Flame to him, then it wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. However, he missed it. Now, even if he wanted to recruit them, there was no hope. After all, Penglai Palace could afford the conditions that he could give to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. What's more, Penglai Palace still had Master Long. It was because of him that Penglai Palace was able to recruit many outstanding talents that other forces couldn't recruit. After bidding farewell to Steward Qin, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others set off on their return journey. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to Penglai Palace, Chu Yunyao and her sister also received the news immediately. During this period of time, they had been very concerned about the movements of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After all, after the last incident, they all knew very well that once Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came over, there would inevitably be a fight between them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others have returned. Chu Yunshang looked at Chu Yunyao and said slowly. Chu Yunyao nodded. So be it. What's the big deal? Looking at Chu Yunyao's indifferent look, Chu Yunshang couldn't help but frown. It is said that in addition to Bailey Hongzhuang, the cultivator who obtained the inheritance of the Demon Refining Tower is also their friend. This time, Master Long and Mentor Yi personally went to the Demon Refining Tower to recruit him. In this way, Bailey Hongzhuang's team will be even stronger. If they take the initiative to provoke us, I will deal with them with you. If they don't come looking for trouble, don't take the initiative to look for trouble, and don't go out by yourself. We have to find an opportunity to completely solve this problem. Chu Yunshang's face was a little dignified. Since knowing this news, she only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and others were really formidable. These fellows had only been in the Penglai Palace for a short period of time. It seemed that every once in a while, the strength of their team would increase a little. Moreover, the speed of their improvement was very terrifying. It seemed that as long as they were not careful, their strength would quietly surpass them. This is the Penglai Palace. I don't believe that they would dare to take the initiative to provoke me after only leaving for a few months. Chu Yunyao still didn't care. In her opinion, Chu Yunshang was completely timid. Even a few guys who had just become inner disciples were afraid of her. It was a waste of her strength. Don't be self-righteous anymore. If you lose your life because of this, I'll see what you can do. Chapter 3844. Sister, I really don't understand. Why is it that the stronger you are now, the more timid you become? Chu Yunyao said with a chagrined expression. Isn't this all because of you? If I wasn't worried about you, why would I care about this? Chu Yunshang rolled her eyes, feeling that Chu Yunyao was really insensible. You should restrain your temper for the time being. If nothing unexpected happens, I will be able to successfully break through to the Star Realm in these days. After I break through to the Star Realm, we will find a way to deal with them. Hearing this, although Chu Yunyao was unwilling, she could only agree, all right. In fact, in her opinion, there was no need for Chu Yunshang to take action. She alone was enough. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was only at the 6th level of the Purple Realm at that time. Even if a few months had passed, how much could Bailey Hongzhuang's strength have improved? In the end, it was just that Chu Yunshang was too nervous. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had just returned to Penglai Palace when Ren Ziheng and some others rushed over. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were safe and sound, they could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, you are all right. We were really worried to death before. Ren Zimei could not help but sigh. Since that incident, we have not seen any trace of you. If we did not receive the note you sent back, we would have thought, since Shangguan Yingying's accident, they knew in their hearts that it was Chu Yunyao's doing. Unfortunately, they could not find any evidence and did not know what to do. Later, Di Baichen and Wen Ziren went out to look for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. They could not help much and were extremely nervous. Until now, they did not know how Bailey Hongzhuang and the others escaped from Chu Yunyao's hands. Fortunately, there were no problems in the end. Fortunately, you came back safe and sound, so we can rest assured. Ren Ziheng smiled faintly. Recently, you have really been in the limelight. I really did not expect you to be so powerful. You even succeeded in breaking through the Demon Training Tower. We were just lucky, that's all. Di Baichen smiled. Chu Jinfeng waved his hand. If you were to be humble and say that you were lucky in other matters, then that would be fine. However, I have personally experienced the Demon Training Tower's test. That kind of abnormal degree is simply impossible for ordinary people to pass. The fact that you were able to pass proves that you are also abnormal. Hearing Chu Jinfeng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Senior Chu, are you praising us? Or are they indirectly scolding us? Chu Jinfeng chuckled. Actually, this is also considered a compliment. Because this inheritance is truly sick, it means that you guys are very strong. Jinfeng is right. Ren Zimei nodded. This inheritance hasn't appeared for over 100 years. You guys actually managed to obtain it. It's really an eye-opener. However, after hearing Ren Zimei's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not pay attention to what she said. Hey hey hey! Ziren moved closer to Ren Zimei, his eyes full of ridicule. What did I just hear? What? Ren Zimei looked at Ziren suspiciously, her eyes filled with confusion. You just called Senior Chu Jinfeng? Did I hear wrongly? Chapter 38:45. Looking at Ren Zimei's appearance, everyone was even more certain that there was something going on between her and Chu Jinfeng. In the next moment, everyone's gaze fell on Chu Jinfeng. When Ziren even asked, Senior Chu, is there a situation? Compared to Ren Zimei's reserved shyness, Chu Jinfeng was much more generous. He raised his eyebrows proudly. Of course, your senior sister Ren is now mine. As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all widened their eyes. Although they had already expected such a result, Chu Jinfeng's words were very bold and unrestrained. After hearing these words, Ren Zimei's face was so red that it almost dripped blood. She immediately pushed Chu Jinfeng and said, What nonsense are you talking about? How am I talking nonsense? Chu Jinfeng's expression became serious. Zimei, I have liked you for many years. Now that you have finally accepted my feelings, I can't wait for the whole world to know. Ren Zimei, who was originally extremely embarrassed, heard Chu Jinfeng's serious confession, and the affection between her eyebrows became even stronger. The corners of her lips gradually rose into a smile. She had always known about Chu Jinfeng's feelings for her, but as she became stronger and stronger, her courage to give her true feelings became smaller and smaller. It was precisely because of this that she had never accepted him. It was not until she met Bailey Hongzhuang and the others that she saw them supporting each other that she felt that it was very beautiful and she yearned for it. It turned out that there were still such sincere feelings. Not everyone only valued their own interests. She also hoped that she could find her other half who treated her with such sincerity. Especially after Shangguan Yingying's disappearance, when she saw the anger and heartache on Ziren's face, her emotions became even stronger. Under the influence of such emotions, she gradually decided to accept Chu Jinfeng. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Chu Jinfeng and Ren Zimei, whose eyes were full of affection, and the smile in her eyes deepened. To be able to see that these two lovers had finally gotten married, they were also sincerely happy. Senior brother Ren, did Chu Yunyao come to find trouble with you while we were away? Di Beichen's eyes darkened slightly as he asked. Ren Ziheng waved his hand. Although Chu Yunyao likes to stir up trouble, since your incident, Chu Yunshang seems to have restrained her a lot, so she didn't come to find trouble. In addition to the bounty issued by the Devil Training Pagoda, many cultivators want to take Chu Yunyao's head, so she doesn't dare to come out easily. During this period of time, she hasn't even left her house, and she doesn't even dare to go to the training grounds. At this point, Ren Ziheng couldn't help but admire Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Logically speaking, with Chu Yunyao's strength, it should be very easy to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang and others. However, the situation was completely opposite. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were just newcomers who had just come to Penglai Island for less than a year, but they forced Chu Yunyao to a situation where she didn't even dare to go out. This was really not an ordinary situation. How do you know that Chu Yunshang restrained her? Shangguan Yingying asked curiously. Chapter 38:46. So that's how it is. Shangguan Yingying immediately understood. I saw that Chu Yunyao's lawless appearance, so there is still someone who can control her. Speaking of which, we still don't quite understand why you were taken away by Chu Yunyao. Ren Zimei couldn't help but say, if it was to take Hongzhuang, then I can understand, but to take you away for a Yunling fruit, I can't understand. Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. Why is it understandable that she took Hong Zhuang? Because Duan Huali likes Hong Zhuang, but any woman who is liked by Duan Huali, Chu Yunyao will always dislike her. You guessed right. Shangguan Yingying gave Ren Zimei a thumbs up. In fact, Chu Yunyao's original intention was to deal with Hong Zhuang, but that afternoon Hong Zhuang happened to be in seclusion, so I was the only one who went there. No wonder. Ren Zimei and Ren Ziheng looked at each other and immediately understood what was going on. Previously, they felt that there was something fishy about this matter. Chu Yunyao was famous for causing trouble in Penglai Palace, but she only targeted women, and these women all had one thing in common, which was that they were all liked by Duan Huali. With Duan Huali's playboy personality, any female cultivator with a little bit of beauty would inevitably be disturbed. Ren Zimei had also experienced such a thing in the past, but Duan Huali was just teasing her, so the matter was not very serious. Looking at your expressions, it seems that you know a lot of stories. Why don't you tell us? It's very interesting to talk about this. A smile appeared in Chu Jinfeng's eyes. This is a very famous love triangle. Love triangle? Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others were slightly stunned. They had never heard of such a situation. Not bad. At that time, Duan Huali actually took a fancy to Chu Yunyao because she was also very beautiful. Chu Yunyao also had a good impression of Duan Huali. The two of them fell in love at first sight. However, they had just met each other a few times and had a good impression of each other. They spoke a few words, but they didn't even know each other's names. After that, Duan Huali went to the training ground. Who would have thought that he would meet Chu Yunshang during the training? Duan Huali did not know that Chu Yunyao and Chu Yunshang were twin sisters. He only thought that Chu Yunshang was Chu Yunyao. When they were training together, he began to pursue her. After saving Chu Yunshang once, Chu Yunshang also had feelings for him. After Chu Yunshang left the place of experience, she told Chu Yunyao that she already had someone she liked. It happened that Chu Yunyao also said that she had a sweetheart. The two sisters were very happy and planned to invite their sweethearts out to meet each other. Who would have thought that when they met, the situation would be awkward? Duan Huali didn't expect to see two people who looked exactly the same. Suddenly, he couldn't even tell who he liked. Chu Yunshang and Chu Yunyao were naturally dumbfounded. They didn't expect it to turn out like this, and they were embarrassed. No? So interesting? When Ziren couldn't help but be speechless. This kind of thing was really hard to say. Speaking of which, it was impossible to say who was right and who was wrong.